Thank you so much for joining JAKAPA today. We are delighted to share a little bit about our passion around soft skills for students and how it will actually help them to be better citizens as they move out into the world. I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Lisa Riegel, who is going to start the presentation. We appreciate your joining us. Go ahead, Dr. Riegel.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for coming. My name's Lisa Riegel. I have been in education for a very long time. I was a teacher, I was an administrator, and for the past 15 years or so, I've worked with leadership teams and teachers to help them figure out how to engage the people in their system, how to engage students in the classroom, how to engage staff in improvement initiatives. And what I noticed over time was that the real missing piece was the soft skills piece. And so you can buy the best, math program in the world, or you can put the best strategy in place. But if you don't have the right soft skills, the implementation falls flat. So that started me on an investigation where I met my co-founders at JAKAPA, and we really dove into what can we do about this soft skills gap. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what they are, and then talk a little bit about how you can build them. This is a model from the Department of Labor, and if you've never seen it before, I highly recommend going to the Department of Labor's website. It's called the Workplace Competencies Model. They have them for each industry sector, and it helps you to understand what are the competencies people in that sector need. This is kind of the generalized one, but they have them for IT and for healthcare and for different industries. The issue that we run into that has caused this soft skills gap is that schools tend to really focus on the tier 2 and tier 4. So the tier 2 are the academic competencies, and the tier 4 are the industry-wide technical competencies. And it makes sense that we do, because we measure what matters, and what schools are measured on are academic outcomes and credentialing. What we miss is the tier 1 and tier 3 competencies, and this is where your soft skills lie. So I realize this is small on the screen, but tier 1 skills are basically your personal effectiveness competencies. So this is communication and initiative and dependability, adaptability. And in the work that I do with workforce development and getting schools and businesses to work together and set up work-based opportunities, this is what I hear the most complaints about from the employers. The workplace competencies, which are in tier 3, that's where it's how you work within the workplace: teamwork, focus, planning and organizing, problem solving, scheduling, coordinating. These are the things that make us productive. And these are other things that I hear teachers complain a lot about with students, is that, they don't know how to work on teams. They don't get their homework in on time. They can't solve a problem. And so we have these two tiers that we've ended up in education kind of creating this Swiss cheese model where we focus heavily on the two other foundational tiers, but we really miss opportunities to grow all of the skills that students need. So why do we care about this? The first thing is that those two tiers that are missing actually improve academic outcomes. And when we started really diving into what could be the impact of doing soft skill training with students, I was actually shocked by the data and about how compelling it is. Soft skill training increases GPA by 11%, graduation rates by 30%, and assignment completion and performance by 9.3%. The other thing that was surprising is that it can increase math testing scores. So we think about how much time we spend in MTSS plans and trying to figure out how to intervene for math. Soft skills is the missing piece to that. It can increase for boys by 7.5% and girls by 10.7%. So pretty compelling statistics. The other piece that we've learned over time is that teacher soft skills are critical to student outcomes. And we know this. We have these great teachers that we can't really put our finger on why they're so wonderful, but they just seem to have it. They're able to build relationships with students. They're able to manage their classrooms. They're able to be efficient and productive in how they teach. Nearly 3/4 of employers say they cannot find employees with sufficient soft skills, and teachers are no different. that, they're coming through the regular school system into the universities, and no one is paying attention to those, having a real strategic approach to building those skills. And so we end up with deficiencies. Only 15% of our success comes from the academic and technical skills. The other 85% is due to our soft skills. And teachers' soft skills have a big impact on the things that schools measure for success as well, including student dropout rates and graduation rates. And they directly explain the variance in student absences, suspensions, and GPA. So, it makes sense if teachers don't have soft skills, students act up in their class, they don't want to come, they disengage, that impacts their GPA, and it impacts their discipline problems as well. The third reason is that soft skills just make us happier. So 2/3 of our general life happiness comes from soft skills. And this is from the Bessie Research Group, who is a strategic partner with us. They are the ones that actually identified soft skills. And I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. Soft skills impact our health. When we look at people with strong soft skills have better health outcomes in their future. They have better predictors of financial success as well. And that's even after we control for social class or IQ, which are often the flipper variables that predict those outcomes. The last one is they cannot be future ready without soft skills. And in a lot of the strategic planning work and implementation work I do, I hear a lot about future ready. There's whole organizations about future ready. And what we're missing is this missing link of soft skills to say they really cannot be ready for their futures if they don't have this set of skills. LinkedIn's Global Talent Report says 89% of recruiters say soft skills are the culprit for a bad hire, and 75% of long-term job success depends on soft skills, while only 25% on technical knowledge. And that, I think, is really telling. I've worked with a lot of schools that serve at-risk students, and we work and work and work so hard just to get them into a job. The problem is if they don't have the soft skills, they won't retain that job, and that can have devastating impact on their trajectory of just work development. There's another group that says 95% of employers say they are essential, but only 37% of employers believe their entry-level employees have the necessary soft skills to be successful. So as we think about this data around soft skills, and you think about how it can benefit your schools, it can benefit your schools not only in the outcomes that are measured on part of your report cards or your, to compete for grants or to compete for various other type of accolades based on success measures, but it can also really enhance your business relationships. And that's an area of work that I spent quite a bit of time on, doing school and business relationships at a career center. And, part of the problem is that we're speaking a different language than they are, but soft skills is the common language that we can do to help really design and implement and track our work-based experiences and the impact that they have. The last piece is teachers don't know how to teach soft skills. When we first started JAKAPA, we talked a little bit about, what is the problem? What is the reason? And what we heard is administrators say, I don't have a measure for this. Teachers said, I don't have time and I don't know how to teach this. I teach content. And students said, we don't even know these are skills. We didn't know that these were things we needed to have. And what we also see is that 51% of employers don't think we're doing our job. We're not helping to close this soft skills gap that costs them millions and millions of dollars annually. Only about 20% of employees feel comfortable talking about them. There isn't a self-awareness of what they are or that they're skills that they can discuss. And yet they're 169% stronger predictor of academic achievement than an IQ score. So these are sort of the top 5 reasons that we need to be thinking about this. So what can you do to do this? What can you do to close those gaps to stop the Swiss cheese model of workforce development? The first is really building a shared vocabulary. If I asked everybody on this webinar, what is decision making, or what is good expressive language, we would have a million different definitions. We have different terms, and even within the field, we can't even agree on whether we call them soft skills. We call them durable skills or essential skills or all these different terms. So the Bessie Research Group that I had mentioned before that found that soft skills lead to general life happiness, they took all these different frameworks that we use. So there's Castle's framework, 21st century, OECD, there's all these different frameworks. And they said, what are we actually saying? Like you're saying tomato, I'm saying tomato, but what are we actually talking about? And what they discovered is what we are talking about is 32 distinct skills in 5 different areas. So you can see here social engagement. That's around really communication skills. It's also around energy regulation. Can we show up ready to go when we need to perform our job? Cooperation skills. Can we work together? Can we get along with people? Can we take their perspectives and be warm and trust them? And are we ethical? Self-management skills are your executive function skills. And a lot of students on IEPs have self-management skill goals. They have executive function problems where they can't manage their time, their task, they're unorganized. They may struggle with responsibility management. So these are all skills within the self-management domain. The emotional resilience domain is sort of obvious what it says, but a piece of that as well is optimism. And I think people kind of have that, oh, he's a glass half empty or a glass half full kind of guy, but we can actually train our brains to be more optimistic, and it's a skill. In emotional resilience is also the ability to be independent, to be adaptable if things aren't going the exact way we thought they would, and to regulate our impulses. And then finally, innovation is the thinking domain. So this is creativity, which is another thing that we think you're born with, but you can actually teach creativity. It's also your information processing and the ability to think abstractly, to self-reflect. So these are the kinds of skills that we need to be thinking about. And so even as I'm talking, reflect in your own mind, how are you addressing these? Are you addressing them in a systemic way? Or do we just say, well, I do group projects in my class, so the students are going to learn some of this. But if we're not overt and very visible about what we're trying to teach through those processes, then students don't necessarily realize that's what they're learning. They just think about whether they got an A. The second thing you can do in your district to build soft skills is to have daily practice. So you want to connect pedagogy to soft skill development. So one of the things we've done at JAKAPA is we've created a document that has all kinds of pedagogy teachers use. So there's, debates, there's Socratic seminars, there's science labs, there's, think, pair, share. There's all these different things we do to try to engage students with each other, but we can connect that pedagogy to what are the actual soft skills that are being developed through that process. And we can shine a light on those by measuring, tracking, and training those soft skills so that students understand that process is just as important as the product they produce. And then we can also incentivize and reward skill development, just like we do with any other kind of skill, like a math skill or a writing skill. So what can we do? We can build a skills-focused culture. The first thing is to define expectations, and defining expectations really involves understanding what are the skills we're trying to teach, where are they being taught, doing almost like a little curriculum map of the skills and saying, where are these things already happening? And then are there ways that we can collectively work together with the same language in order to build those skills? We see, teachers using different terminology, and we learn through repetition, experience, and emotion. So if we share vocabulary and we have daily practice and we're connecting our pedagogy, then students are going to start to see that over and over again. They're going to have that repetition in the same way that they repeat practice in math problems. The other piece is engaging teachers in learning. I talked earlier about teacher soft skills. They directly impact your culture. They directly impact student outcomes. And so teachers sometimes can benefit from soft skills training as well. And so one of the things we've tried to do at JAKAPA is create a program where teachers and students can learn together. The other piece is integrating. I mentioned a couple times, you measure what matters, and what you measure matters. So we want to think about how are we integrating the data that we measure, train, and track around soft skills into data team meetings. It's not just about looking at reading data or math data or discipline data, but it's also looking at this underlying foundational set of skills that can be very valuable in helping you explain that other data. And then performance management. Some of the folks that we're working with are using this with their teachers to help them set goals in their teacher evaluation systems that are related to soft skills. You can use it with teams and have your teams, become a little bit more self-reflective and think about, why are some teams more productive than others? We can also use it with student teams and with student goal setting. Can use it with our PBIS system. And as a side note with PBIS, one of the things that research is very, very clear about is that if we give external rewards for behaviors that we already do intrinsically, it actually demotivates us. So when we have these PBS matrices and they have, certain characteristics that we want to see students demonstrating, if I'm a kid who's always been respectful, I already know how to show respect, and that's one of your PBIS words, then you're rewarding me for a behavior I already do. What happens then is it actually demotivates me to do that behavior. So having soft skill data connected to your PBIS can be really powerful. You can say, okay, we're not good at everything, but pick one of the skills within, what are the skills you need to be respectful? What are the skills you need to be responsible? Pick a skill that you don't currently have and work on that. And then you can reward that skill development with external rewards until the student internalizes those skills and they become a habit. The other place is we are a no-brainer for a tier 1 MTSS intervention, because everybody needs these skills. So thinking again, how can you build that into, if you've done, a reading MTSS or an overall MTSS model in your district, where are you putting soft skills into that model? And then finally, celebrating growth and engagement. There was probably about, at this point, it's probably been 7 or 8 years, the gentleman that won the Nobel Peace Prize won it for studying incentives and studying how human behavior is impacted by incentives. So it's not just a student thing. This is for all human beings. We are compelled to action when we're incentivized to do it. And then we continue to do that action when we are rewarded with feedback that celebrates our growth and in our engagement in kind of a growth-minded culture. So basically, in a nutshell, what we are trying to do is to shine a light on the importance of these skills. They are an equity issue. We see these gaps that persist in our data, and regardless of all the things that we try to do, we continue to see wide gaps in student data. So we are hoping to shine a light on this, get people to start thinking that just as we have a strategy on how we're implementing other academic curriculum, we need to have a strategy on how we're implementing training, tracking, and measuring of soft skills. So at JAKAPA, we have a gamified platform students engage in about 10 to 15 minutes a day. We measure, train, and track these skills. We have the ability to award elective credit for students. So we had that incentivizing use of JAKAPA. We can be integrated into career programming that you have in your schools. And we would love to continue the conversation about how we are working with other kinds of schools and different ways that you can integrate JAKAPA into your program. So I hope that this was informational, at least to help you walk out of here and say, I really do need to think about this in a more concrete way rather than a big picture way. And then we hope that we can help you figure out how to do that in your district.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Dr. Riegel.
You're welcome. If anybody has questions, you can reach out to us, and we would be happy to set up a call and talk with you a little bit more about what we do and how we do it. And we would love to be a partner to help you bring this soft skills focus into your district.
Thank you.